Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose, and if you ever saw him, you would even say it glows. All of the other reindeer used to laugh and call him names. They never let poor Rudolph join in any reindeer games. Then one foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say, Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight? Then all the reindeer loved him, and they shouted out with glee, yippee! Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, you'll go down in history. Good. Never in his wildest dreams would Rudolph have dreamt of being born with a red nose that glows in the dark. He stuck out like a sore thumb. You know, he tried his best to hide his glowing nose, but at all the wrong times, it would light up and glow. All the other reindeer made fun of him. He was embarrassed, ashamed. He thought his reindeer career was doomed. But then, one day, the very thing he did not want to draw attention to, the very circumstance about his life that he feared would plague him, the very thing that took him on an unexpected path, became the thing that saved him, right? He became the front of the pack, sled-guiding reindeer. He saved the day on that stormy night when Santa could not see a thing without Rudolph's red nose leading the way. Pardon the cliche example here. 'Tis the season, though. The point is quite simple. The unexpected things in our lives can be blessings. We just have to wait it out sometimes to see what the upsides are to something that seems like a downside. Advent is all about expecting the unexpected. But as Bob Dylan once said, doesn't expecting the unexpected make the unexpected expected? Well, he's got a point. Except that we never know what the unexpected will be. And that's what the Christmas story is all about. The unexpected happens to different people throughout this story, and it causes them fear. But it also creates faith. Last week, Luke told us in the first chapter of his gospel that the angel Gabriel appeared to Zechariah and said, "Fear not, Zechariah, for the thing for which you have been waiting for and longing for and praying for your entire life is coming true. You're gonna have a child." This week, Matthew tells us in the first chapter of his gospel that an angel appears to Joseph in a dream and says, "Fear not, Joseph, the thing that in your wildest dreams you could never imagine happening is going to happen to you and to your fiancée Mary. She's pregnant, but don't worry, she has not been unfaithful to you. This is a child of the Spirit, don't you know, who you are to name Jesus." Now, there are a lot of similarities in these two stories. Zechariah and Joseph are both righteous men, the texts tell us. Zechariah is a priest from the lineage of Abijah, and Joseph is a tradesman from the lineage of King David. Both men are delivered messages by an angel. For Zechariah, it was Gabriel. We don't know who it was with Joseph. My theory is that, Gabriel was out on assignment with Zechariah, and so one of his proteges got Joseph. I mean, it was an angelic dream appearance, right? It wasn't like in the holiest of holies in the sanctuary like Gabriel was doing. Now, both men also find out from their angelic messengers that their beloveds are going to have miraculous pregnancies. Zechariah and Elizabeth's child would be conceived naturally, albeit defying science and medicine, for they were old, way past the age of childbearing. Joseph and Mary's child would be conceived supernaturally via the Holy Spirit, leaving Joseph wondering, I'm sure, is this even my child? Or is it just Mary and God's? What's my role in all of this? Both men are told that their sons are going to be great spiritual leaders, leading the people of Israel back to God, both fulfilling prophecies. And both men do not get to react as they want to react to this news that they are given. Zechariah wants to shout it from the rooftops that he's finally going to have a child, but God makes him mute. Now, Joseph, before his dream, wants to quietly dismiss Mary, but then after his dream, he reacts differently. He marries Mary and completes his rightful duties as a husband. And of course, they are both told to be not afraid of their bizarre circumstances. Fear not, the angels say. So yeah, Zechariah and Joseph have a lot in common. But amidst all of these similarities, there was one glaring difference. See if you can catch it. Fear not, Zechariah, for the thing for which you have been longing for your entire life is coming true. Fear not, Joseph, for the thing that in your wildest dreams you would have never imagined happening is happening. Did you catch the difference there? Zechariah is told to fear not because his prayer and longing is coming true. And as we discovered last week, sometimes when you've been longing for something your whole life, you don't know what to do with yourself when you finally get it. Joseph, on the other hand, is told to fear not because something he never imagined or wanted or envisioned for his life is happening. Maybe he had thought about it every now and again. What if Mary was unfaithful, but, nothing real? And now his worst nightmare was coming true. And although it wasn't a man, so to speak, that had been with Mary, it was God. Honestly, I think that could have made Joseph more confused and crazy, and maybe even more hurt. Joseph was a righteous man. Why couldn't God use Joseph to play a bigger role in this whole plan? Mary's pregnancy is clearly unwanted and unexpected news for Joseph. And he's afraid. Who wouldn't be? The angel comes, of course, and says, don't be afraid. You've got this. Trust me, it's going to be a huge blessing and miracle. It just feels like a curse and a nightmare right now. In other words, this glowing red nose that you have, that you hate and that you feel ashamed of, is about to be a great thing for you. Just wait, your day will come. It's natural, isn't it, to have fear in the midst of the unexpected? Because we can't see the future, and we don't know how things will unfold. Now, I think it's easier for us to relate to Joseph than Zechariah, perhaps, because many of us pray and long for something for a long, long time, and our miracle hasn't happened yet. But with Joseph, I have a feeling we can all relate to the feeling of something happening in our lives that comes from left field. Something that wasn't the way we planned it. Something that was bad news, at least until it became good news. Joseph had to wait, he had to endure, he had to be faithful, not knowing who or what this child was until the child was actually here. He had to believe the angel, believe Mary's innocence, and even believe in the better angel of himself to stay with Mary. Mary's pregnancy was shocking and unwanted news for Joseph, and he was afraid. When's the last time you received shocking or unwanted news? Was it a diagnosis or a death? Was it a broken relationship or a divorce? A layoff? An accident? All of these situations and scenarios are fear-filled because these are not the things that you sort through in 1 or 2 therapy sessions or in a good phone conversation with a friend. These are the messy, yucky, hard things in life that you know when it happens will change your life forever. And you're afraid. Afraid of how to handle it. Afraid because you don't know what to do next. Afraid because you don't know how you will live your life without that person in it. Afraid because this means you're going to have to shift careers or dreams. It means that what once was stable is now shaky. What once was known is now unknown. Now, shocking and unwanted news does not always have to be dramatic. It may even be, simple things like receiving word that a colleague is going to be gone for a while and you have to cover all of their work. Morgan and I don't know anything about that. Anxiety kicks in. How will it all get done, you wonder? Anxiety, by the way, is a form of fear. Or, you get the phone call from the school. Your child isn't doing her homework, or he's gotten into a fight, or she's been caught with drugs, or he's been skipping class, and you're afraid because you don't know what other parenting strategies to try. You are at your wit's end. You don't know what to say, what to do, how to help. You feel lost. Maybe you feel like a failure as a parent. Fear, by the way, can often feel like failure. Maybe the news is that a fellow church member that you love is looking for another church, and you're sad about that, and you don't fully understand it. You're afraid that because they left and others have left, that this church is no longer your church, that things are changing. Change, by the way, is often a cause for fear, sometimes irrational fear, because nothing bad has actually happened to you, but the fact that things around you are changing makes you think your life might change too. Or maybe you're more like me, and it's the literal news that is shocking and unwanted. You turn on the TV, you read the paper, you hear about the tax bills and healthcare and DACA and travel bans and Jerusalem and sexual harassment and disease and epidemics and fires. You didn't ask for any of these things to happen in our world, and you're afraid of what it will mean for your life, but also for the lives of those who are directly affected. Will the world become even more volatile and unstable? The fact is, we've all had Joseph moments in our lives when we've experienced or had unwanted circumstances come our way. And probably our first reaction is to do what Joseph wanted to do, at least at first, to withdraw, to escape, to get out of the situation, to get defensive, to hunker down. But what would happen if we didn't dwell on our first gut reaction and instead sat in our fear and allowed time for God to speak to us? Maybe it is an angel in a dream. More likely, it's probably a comment from a friend over coffee or a message from a colleague over a text. Fear not. Don't be afraid. Instead of reacting as we instinctively do when we hear news that we don't like or when we feel threatened or hurt or disappointment, what if we hung in there? What if we didn't run from our fears but faced them head on? And what if we assumed that somewhere in there is good news for us? Somewhere in this bad news is good news, even if it is unfathomable to us right now. You notice how Joseph doesn't wake up for this dream and just say, wow, Mary's pregnant, everything's great, yippee. No, he just says, he did what the angel of the Lord commanded him, and he took Mary as his wife. He named the son Jesus. Being faithful doesn't mean dismissing our fears altogether. Being faithful doesn't mean we still won't have fears or questions or doubts. Being faithful, as we see with Joseph, simply means sticking it out with God through our fears, through the shocking news, through the unwanted circumstances, through the anxiety. The key to this passage comes at the end with the birth of the Christ child. Everything changes in that moment for Joseph. And Matthew says it in these last 5 words of this passage, and he named him Jesus. This is a profound act. Naming is always profound. But in this case, it's a very big deal that it is Joseph that names this baby, not Mary. Joseph is the one who was given the name in a dream. Joseph is the one who has no biological connection to this child, but who names him the name above all names, Jesus, Emmanuel, God with us. Mary might have been the one with child in this story. But Joseph was one with unanswered fears and doubts about where this child came from. He could never really be sure of the truth, right? He had to trust. I'm sure his fears remained and his doubts remained even after the birth of Jesus, even after he was in the throes of fatherhood. And so it is profound that Joseph, the one who could never really know if this child was of God or not, is the one to name him God with us. What an act of faith, a statement of faith. Even more powerful because of the uncertainty that was in Joseph's life when he said it. Every year we celebrate Jesus' birth, and every year we have a choice. Will we name this child as Emmanuel, God with us? Will we take this child for our own? Meaning, like Joseph, will you claim your participation in the birth of the Christ child and claim the presence of God as with you, even in your fears? Amen. One of the most common fears is fear of the dark, and that's why I think